So I'll take you back, I'll bring you back to the reseed exam of 18-19 academic year. This was not the complete question, but it's part of the question, and I think it's a nice exercise to think about at this point in our course. So we've got a special, fully discrete whole life insurance on a policyholder age 40. And the following is given. We've got a death benefit of 1,000 euros during the first 20 years, 5,000 during the next 5 years, and 1,000 afterwards. We've got a certain mortality table given, and we've got a certain interest rate being given. And the question is, or part of the question was, calculate the expected present value of this particular product. So maybe about the second bullet, the given table. Well, that's a mortality table that you can find on Canvas, which I often use during midterms and exams, and which basically lists for a series of products the present, the EPVs. And I will do, while solving the exercise, I will show you how this mortality table looks like and how you can use it to answer the question. Maybe a first question for you is, try to reflect why I call this a special whole life insurance product. So why is it not a sort of regular whole life insurance product? Well, the specialty here, or the special feature here, is that the death benefit is changing over time. So the death benefit is not constant. It's 1,000 euros during the first 20 years, then it's 5,000 euros, and then it's again 1,000 euros, right? So it's a whole life, so there is no specific end date or end duration or maximum duration, but it is special in the sense that the death benefit is changing. It's discrete, it's fully discrete. So I'm going to work here with annual time periods, and I'm going to use the valuation formulas for the annual product, right? So the first thing that I would recommend you to do if you need to solve an exercise like this is to make a timeline. Yeah, so to quickly make a sketch so that you understand how these death benefits and how this product behaves. So I'm going to start at age 40. That's the age of my policyholder at the time he or she buys the contract. So that is time 0. So age is on top, time is at the bottom. And then we know that there is this death benefit of 1,000 during the first 20 years. So that is up to age 60. Then we've got something for the next 5 years. And then we've got something for the remaining lifetime. Like I said, it's a whole life, so there is no particular endpoint or duration. Okay, so the death benefit that is covered is 1,000 euro every year for death during the first 20 years. And here the death benefit covered is this 5,000 euros. And then here it's again 1,000 euros, right? So that means if you would split this time frame, if you would split it in periods of 1 year, then it means if you die during a particular year, then the death benefit will be paid at the end of the year of death, because it's a discrete product. So when we try to write down the EPV, because that's requested, we need to have the present value and we need to have the expected present value, right? So we need to think about our valuation formulas for the whole life annual discrete time life insurance product. So we need to think about this type of valuation formula. We know that we've got this AX, where you take the sum over K of V to the power K plus 1, K times KPX, times QX plus K. So this is the closest formula, the formula that comes closest to the situation that we have. But the main difference, of course, is that here, the death benefit is constant over the whole duration, right? So every year, the death benefit that is covered is just €1, right? So this is the most basic case that we can come up with. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this type of valuation formula to cover this scenario where the death benefit is changing over time. And that's why you need to build up some foundations in terms of using these summation formulas, because if you're not good with the summation formulas, then I think it's very hard to get started on this particular exercise. So what are we going to do? We're going to develop a tailor-made valuation formula. So we're going to say that the benefit is 1,000, but that's only 1,000 for the first 20 years of the contract. So if I want to value this first part of my contract, the first 20 years, I'll need an EPV formula like this one. Yeah. Do take into account the K runs from 0 to 19. So that means I'm either going to pay my 1,000 euro at time 1, at time 2, or up to time 20, right? And that's exactly what I should have. Then I look at the next 5 years of the contract, and there the insured amount is 5,000 euros, right? So that's going to be plus 5,000 times sum over K, and now the K runs from 20 to 24, V to the power K plus 1, KP40 times Q40 plus K. So here we see that the K goes from 20 to 24. So that means that my 5,000 euro, in case of death, will be paid at time 21, 22, 23, 24, or 25, right? So it indeed covers the scenarios of death of the policyholder happening between age 60 and 65. And for the last part of the contract, I've got plus 1,000 times the sum for K running from 25 to plus infinity of V to the power K plus 1, KP40 times Q40 plus K. So now we're back in the situation where the death benefit drops to 1,000 euro, and the death benefit is payable at time 26, 27, and so on until plus infinity. So this is, with a big summation formula, this is what I need to do. This is my EPV. But of course, if I've got a mortality model, if I've got an interest rate, and if I've got Excel at my disposal, or R or something, then I can program this and I can calculate the value, right? But you don't have that during the reset. So the only thing you have is this life table where you see the EPV of certain standard products being listed. And let me show you how that looks like so that you can get a feeling of the kind of material that you would have at your disposal to answer this question. Well, this life table looks like this, right? So what you see is you've got LX, you've got QX, you've got the EPV of a whole life annuity, you've got the EPV of a whole life insurance, you've got some pure endowment expressions, and you've got it for multiple ages X, right? And for a given interest rate, so in this case, it's for an interest rate of 6%. So that's the only thing you can use to come up with a numerical value for this EPV, right? So you'll have to think about a clever way how to go from the detailed summation formula to expressions that would rely on the values that are listed here in the table, right? So that's what you need to do. So that is our job. That's the next step. So let's continue. So what are we going to do? We're going to rewrite the whole thing. And we're going to say, okay, that's the same as saying that the 1,000 euro is insured as a death benefit throughout the whole lifetime of the contract, right? So I'm going to rewrite my summation formula from the previous sheet. I'm going to rewrite it as such. So I'm going to say you've got 1,000 euro covered throughout the whole lifetime. And you've got an extra 4,000 euro covered temporarily between age 60 and 65. Yeah? So this is the same expression, but now written in a slightly more clever way, because of course what I recognize here now, for example, this is the EPV of a whole life insurance product with a death benefit of €1 issued to a 40-year-old. And I can look that up in my table. So see the life table that's given, right? Okay, so I'm going to work with this expression. I can say it's 1,000 times a 40 plus, and now I need to think about the next part of my expression. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to put v to the power 20 and 20p40 in front. I'm going to take a sum for k running from 0 to 4 of v to the power k plus 1. And now I'm going to work with kp60, q60 plus k. So this is a clever way to change, if you want, or to work with a sort of time shift in this valuation expression. And why is it clever? Because now I recognize here the formula for the EPV of a term insurance product issued to a 60-year-old with duration 5. It's a term insurance, so I put the 1 on top of the 60. Okay, so I've got, as a result, something that I can now get from my table. This is v to the power 20, 20p40 times this guy. And this, we also denote that as a pure endowment issued to a 40-year-old with a duration of 20. And you may remember that that is indeed one of the columns in the given life table. So there is, in fact, one last thing to think about is this term insurance, because a term insurance, that was not listed as such in my life table. So how should I value this term insurance issued to a 60-year-old with a duration of 5 years? Can we come up with something clever for that? So that's the last thing I want to mention, or I want to explain. If you look at this term insurance with a duration of 5 years, then you can see it as follows. And this may ring a bell, because that's exactly what we did when we derived the recursive relations for the products that we discussed last Monday, right? So if you don't see that immediately, well, you could also see it as follows. If you look at a whole life insurance issued to a 60-year-old, then that is the same as issuing a term insurance with duration 5 years to a 60-year-old, and then looking at the whole life insurance issued to a 65-year-old, right? But if you want to value that at the age of 60, then you must not forget to multiply this with the pure endowment, which is the actuarial discount factor, if you want, which is v to the power 5 times 5p60. Yeah? So that's exactly what we discussed last Monday in the section on recursions. If you write down the summations formulas in full detail, you will again see that this relation makes sense, and that this indeed the way how you should treat it. So what I'm doing here is I look at a whole life insurance for a 60-year-old. I say, okay, that's a cover of 5 years issued to a 60-year-old. And then in case the 60-year-old reaches age 65, I will continue with this whole life cover issued to a 65-year-old. But if I need to value the whole thing at age 60, because that's what I want to do, right, at the left-hand side, then I need to multiply here with a discounting factor over a period of 5 years. But this discounting factor should also take into account that I only need this whole life insurance issued to a 65-year-old if my policyholder, who is at time 0, 60-year-old, if he reaches age 65. That's the whole thing. Q60 plus K, that's what we learned, right? Yeah. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to split, and I'm going to say, okay, this is from 0 to 4, v to the power k plus 1, kp60 times q60 plus k. And this is the part that starts from k is 5 on, and that runs to plus infinity. And what I recognize here is immediately the EPV of the term insurance. It's a term insurance issued to a 60-year-old with a duration of 5 years. So I'm good with this part. And I need to think about what can I do with this part? Well, here I can see that all these terms in my expression, that they've got v to the power 5 and 5p60 in common. And how can you see that? Well, if you don't see it right away, just write that in full. You've got v to the power 6 And then you've got 5p60 q60 plus 5. That will be the first term. Second term is v to the power 70. And then you would have 6p60 q60 plus 6 and so on, right? So I can put in front v to the power 5 times 5p60. And I'm left with a sum for k starting from 0 to plus infinity of v to the power k plus 1 times kp65 q65 plus k. And what we recognize here in this summation formula is then the EPV of a whole life issued to a 65-year-old. So in the end, we retrieve a term insurance plus a pure endowment or an actuarial discounting factor times the A65.